Peah, Perek Gimel, Mishnah Aleph. We've discussed in the past the idea that if you have a field that's split into two, there's a stream in between, or you planted things in between, or you plowed in between, so then the field becomes not one field, but two fields for the purpose of Peah. And you have to distinguish, and you have to leave Peah, you have to leave the extra corner uncut in each field, and not in one area for the entire large field. So now we're going to discuss what happens if I have trees, and in between the trees I want to plant areas, patches of vegetables, or what have you. So that's exactly what the Mishnah is going to discuss. Are those paths? Now the trees themselves are considered one field. What about the patches themselves? Says the Mishnah, Malbenot hatvu'ah shebein hazeitim. If I have malbenot, from the word malbein, rectangles of grain, of produce, between olive trees. So now the machloket is Beit Shammai omim. Beit Shammai says, Peah mikol echad ve'echad. I have to do one peah from each different malbein, each rectangle. Beit Hillel omim me'echad alakol. Beit Hillel says, no, you take from all of them together. So let's just look at it for a second. Hold on one second. Here we go. Okay, so the Kahati explains that according to the Gemara, we're only talking about if you have it's called a Beit Se'ah, 50 amot by 50 amot, that's called a Beit Se'ah. It's about 800 square meters for those of you living outside of the United States. If you want to know in feet, I can't help you. Okay, it's only talking about if you have 10 trees in a Beit Se'ah. That was the standard average amount that they would plant. Okay, so you'll see that your average farmer would plant, they're not going to waste all this space for their olive trees. In between the olive trees, in between the rows of the olive trees, they're planting these malbenot, these rectangles of tvu'ah. Okay? So the Kahati explains that it's clear according to the Gemara, everyone agrees, they're only arguing if you have 10 trees in space in a 50 by 50 amma Beit Se'ah. But if you have more trees, then it's a huge machloket whether Beit Shammai says you definitely have to consider it like one, or Beit Hillel says you don't have to consider it like one. He says, if you have more trees, the basic understanding is that if you have less trees, so let's say I have 6 trees, then these malbenot are bigger. So then each rectangle would take up more space, and Beit Hillel would say that you would treat it like one field. Whereas if you have 15 trees, 12 trees here, then you have less space for the rectangles, and even Beit Shammai would agree that you treat it like separate fields. Nonetheless, the whole idea is everyone agrees that it's 10 trees in a Beit Se'ah, and these are the squares in between. So you have machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Beit Shammai says Peah mikol echad ve'echad. Beit Shammai says each one of these would be a separate field, okay? And therefore you take a Peah here and a Peah here and a Peah there. And Beit Hillel says me'echad alakol. One Peah for all of them. So you would add up the total square amount, and you would leave a little, you'd leave a bigger corner on the edge of this aruga. Umodim, the Mishnah continues, and they agree, if the tips, the heads of the lines of the rows are mu'uravin, are mixed together, shunotein peah me'achar alakol. How do you have the roshei shurot mu'uravin? Let's say instead of having square patches, I want to maximize my space. So he starts putting in diamond-shaped patches, and they intermingle with one another. So they all agree, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel agree, that once they're intermingled with one another, and this would obviously continue for the entire Beit Se'ah, then in that situation, shunotein peah echad alakol, you give peah, one peah for everything. I wanted to dedicate this Mishnah's learning, the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. If you have any comments or questions, feel free, rspolter@gmail.com. As always, have a great day.